Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big topics using the source material itself. Okay, let's dive right in. We're looking at why, in the United States, something that's totally fine in one state could get you into some serious trouble in the one right next door. It's a legal patchwork that is, believe me, way stranger than you think.
To give you a feel for what we're talking about, let's start with this little gem from Massachusetts. Yup, if you're thinking about placing a bet, you better make sure you're a good distance away from any livestock exhibitions. It's a super specific rule for a very specific situation. But oh, it gets weirder. Now, let's jump all the way northwest to Alaska, where the rules could not be more different. Forget about cattle shows. Up here, betting on dog mushing contests is completely legal. It's a perfect example of how a state's own unique culture and history gets written right into its laws.
And, okay, one more for good measure. In California, a state known for Silicon Valley and Hollywood, it's apparently illegal to own dice with more than 6 faces. So for all you Dungeons & Dragons players out there, yeah, your 20-sided die is technically contraband. And these aren't just some dusty, old forgotten laws. They're all part of a much bigger story.
So these quirky rules are a great start, but they're really just the tip of the iceberg. And nowhere is this legal variety more obvious than in the world of gambling. So let's use that as our first case study to see just how deep this rabbit hole really goes. Seems like a pretty simple question, doesn't it? But here's the thing. The answer completely depends on where you are standing. There's just no single yes or no for the entire country, and the differences between states can be absolutely staggering. Just take a look at this stark contrast. In Nevada, licensed casino gambling is practically the backbone of the state's economy. But drive just a few miles east into Utah, a state with deep religious roots, and boom, all forms of wagering are completely prohibited. 2 states right next to each other with 2 completely opposite legal and cultural realities.
And it's not just a simple on or off switch either. The rules can get incredibly specific. Like in Florida, you can play penny ante poker at home, but only if the total winnings are under $10. Or in Illinois, you can gamble on a riverboat, but for some reason not if that boat is on Lake Michigan. In Colorado, it allows casinos, but only in 3 specific mountain towns and with a $5 max bet.
And this is where the sheer complexity of it all really hits home. This table, it's straight from our source material, and it shows the detailed regulations for just the first 6 states alphabetically. Each column is a different set of rules for things like horse racing, casinos, lotteries. It's an absolute legal minefield.
Okay, so this whole legal patchwork thing isn't just for big, high-stakes topics like gambling. It actually affects really everyday situations too. Let's move on and look at a much more common scenario. What happens when you find something that someone else lost?
I mean, it's a classic moral dilemma, right? But it's also a legal one. You see a wallet on the sidewalk. Do you have to turn it in? Can you just keep the cash? Well, once again, the answer totally depends on which state you're in.
Let's look at another one of these sharp contrasts. In California, the law's pretty clear. Fined over $100 and you have to report it. If nobody claims it after 90 days, it's legally yours. But these laws can get really specific. For instance, in Arkansas, the rules for abandoned property are totally different for tenants. You leave something behind when you move out, your landlord can just get rid of it immediately. Your rights can change depending on not just where you are, but the exact situation.
And again, the details are just fascinating. A pet left at a vet's office is legally considered abandoned after 14 days in California, but only 10 days in Alabama. In Connecticut, if you don't report something you found, it's not just bad manners, it could actually get you a fine and even jail time. So the crucial point here is, these aren't just suggestions, they are real, enforceable laws with actual consequences.
So, we've seen how wildly different the states can be on 2 very distinct topics. But these are just small pieces of a much, much larger puzzle. The reality is that this variation extends to nearly every aspect of American life. Our source, the National Survey of State Laws, reveals something pretty staggering. There are at least 50 major legal categories where every single state has decided to forge its own path. That's not just a few different rules. That's 50 entirely different legal landscapes all coexisting inside one country.
And we're not talking about small stuff here. We're talking about some of the most fundamental and deeply personal issues in our society. Everything from gun control and the reasons you can get a divorce, to animal welfare laws, capital punishment, the right to die, and even how many years a kid is required to go to school. Every single one has a different answer depending on the state.
And this is what that complexity looks like for just one of those topics, lost property.
every state has its own detailed statutes for things like a finder's responsibilities and what happens to abandoned stuff. Now, just imagine this level of detail multiplied across all 50 topics. The scale is just immense.
So why? Why is the system like this? Is it just random chaos, or is there actually a reason for this incredible diversity of laws? Well, the answer gets to the very core of how the United States is structured. Turns out, this isn't a bug, it's a feature. The U.S. legal system is built on an idea called federalism, which is basically that power is shared between the national government and the individual states. This gives states the authority to act as laboratories of democracy, creating laws that reflect the unique values, economies, and needs of their own citizens. So that wild patchwork we've been exploring, it's a direct result of this foundational principle.
So the next time you're on a road trip, just remember this. When you cross a state line, you're not just crossing a line on a map. You are entering an entirely new legal world. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What seemingly innocent habits do you have that are perfectly legal at home, but could get you into trouble just one state over?